It's not just one bad apple. The whole damn tree is rotten.
How to abolish the police. Okay, so this video is actually Splinter reposting something that its previous incarnation, Fusion, posted about 5 months back. But I wasn't paying as much attention to Fusion back then, so this one is new to me. But anyway, abolishing the police. Sounds exciting. So, in the absence of law enforcement, what does Black Lives Matter suggest to take its place, to keep the peace and, well, enforce the law?
I think when people hear that we're anti-police, they think it's going to be chaos.
If you subtract law enforcement from the societal equation, and people who would violate the law and/or other people's rights know that there's no danger of consequence to their actions by police, well, what do you think will happen, if not chaos?
The new abolitionist movement it's about transformative justice.
The new abolitionist movement. So, the old abolitionist movement was meant to abolish slavery. The new abolitionist movement is meant to abolish police?
Non-prison, non-police-based strategies for dealing with violence and crisis in our communities.
Non-prison, non-police strategies for dealing with violence and crisis. Okay, so what are those strategies? I mean, if not the police and the disincentive of risking jail time for breaking the law, what does Black Lives Matter suggest as the alternatives?
Who hasn't had a bad day? Who hasn't felt anxious or depressed? The question is, should anybody deserve to die because of it?
Well, are these anxious or depressed people endangering the lives of police or the lives of others? If so, their mental state is both irrelevant and, quite possibly, entirely unknowable by police in crisis situations. And who are you talking about, anyway? I mean, in individual cases, I might even be on your side, in some sense. There are a lot of instances out there where I think the police should or could have taken intermediate action ahead of using lethal force. But even then, that's more a matter of policy and training, not a reason to say that police forces should be abolished.
The police's sole responsibility is to manufacture criminals.
The police's sole responsibility is to manufacture criminals. So, when the police arrest someone for murder, or drug dealing, or DUI, that person only becomes a criminal because police arrested them? Well, you are absolutely right. Police intervention does turn people who would otherwise not have a criminal record into people with a criminal record because they got caught. Good job, Black Lives Matter. You're right on the money. You just have a ridiculous way of framing it.
So here you have for-profit prisons. When you create space, you create a demand. That means that bodies have to fill those prisons. And we have seen that it's largely transgender people, it's Black people, it is Native people, it's Latinx people.
All right, so let me see if I understand this. The for-profit prisons actually own the police, and they make the police arrest innocent people to fill these prisons for a profit. And these innocent people, regardless of their race or gender status, are also victims of an entirely corrupt criminal justice system that put them all through a farce of due process, hearings, trials, what have you, involving a vast conspiracy of judges, jurors, prosecutors, and defense attorneys who make sure that innocent people are convicted of crimes in order to fill the jails for the benefit of for-profit prisons. And all of the people involved in this arrangement are all getting paid by the for-profit prisons, of course. I mean, there has to be a really good incentive for all of these public servants, police, judges, lawyers, to completely abandon any and all ethical conduct. Now, I love a good conspiracy, and I am open to you proving this to me. But first, you really need to
show me the money.
When you have that demand, then you also have to create incentives. That trickles down to police, who also now have the incentive of creating criminals. It's not about justice anymore, it's about profit.
What incentives? If it's about the profit, and it's a profit motive that is driving police to arrest people who should not be arrested, if it's profit causing judges and jurors to send people to jail, then you need to...
Show me the money!
I think we start with the demilitarization of the police. Police don't need assault weapons to protect people.
Again, I might agree with you there. All-out assault weapons and military surplus should probably be reserved for SWAT teams and the emergency units of law enforcement. But then, the availability of assault weapons to people who would use them to commit crimes is also something to consider. Creating a situation where the police can be outgunned by the crooks is a real issue. So, it is a discussion worth having, but it is not an argument that supports abolishing police and prisons. By the way, what were your proposals in the alternative to police and prisons again?
The second thing that we can do is really look at police budgets and create models and economies for that divestment from the institution of policing and the reinvestment in community models. That means taking money out of police budgets and slowly phasing out police because we don't actually need them in our communities. They don't keep people safe.
So basically, starve the beast until it dies. Phase police out of the picture by simply not funding them until they go away. Because we don't need the police, they don't keep us safe. Got it. Well, in that scenario then, who would you rely on to ensure that a Black Lives Matter protest is not hindered or threatened by counter-protesters? In that scenario, who would you call for help if someone was breaking into your home at 3 a.m? What is your alternative?
You know, when you're looking at it from the lens of race in this country, it's absolutely easier to manufacture criminals around that. When people's skin becomes weaponized, particularly black skin, a book becomes a gun, a cell phone becomes a gun, a bag of Skittles becomes a gun.
Especially black skin. Okay, how often does it occur that police shoot people over mistaking a common object for a weapon? And of those, how many are black people? You said especially, so you must have that information, correct? You're going to provide proof of this claim, aren't you? No? Got it.
We don't have some personal war with individual police officers. What we do have is deep concern and a fight against the institution of policing.
You don't have a war against individual police officers. You just think that all police officers should lose their jobs. You just accuse all police officers of being ethically and morally bankrupt. You just accuse all police officers of not keeping anyone safe. But you don't have a war against any individual police officers, just all of them. Got it.
Undocumented communities know that they can't call the police in the event that crisis happens. A lot of black communities know that too. And so entire mosques, churches, communities, they have agreements where they won't call the police should something happen.
Wait a second. You just smushed two ideas together there. You say undocumented communities can't call the police. That a lot of black communities also can't call the police. None of these people have access to telephones. None of these people have the ability to call 911. And then you move on to mosques, churches, and communities in the abstract, that they all have agreements where they won't call the police. So, a couple of problems here. If you are to be believed, in the absence of your providing any evidence for these claims, of course, undocumented people can call the police, but they are choosing not to. Black communities can call the police, but they are choosing not to. And mosques and churches are, by your claims, explicitly choosing not to call the police. When you said earlier that the police don't keep you safe, could it be because you're not alerting them to danger that they might be able to help prevent?
And in its place, we've seen such a wonderful and diverse response when it comes to intervention in our communities. We've seen people rise up with trainings around mental health crisis, intimate partner violence crisis. We've seen rapid response justice teams, and I think that's really what we need to be building.
Whoa, 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 whoa. As a result of people not calling police, in their place there has been a response of intervention. People rising up with mental health and domestic violence training and rapid response justice teams. Justice teams. Not the police, but justice teams. Okay, well, what exactly do these justice teams do? Do they bring justice to communities that avoid involving the police? What kind of justice do they deliver? And under whose authority do they bring it? I mean, do undocumented communities provide justice based on their home countries? Do Black communities provide justice based on Black Lives Matter? And tell me, by what playbook do you think churches and mosques would provide justice through their rapid response justice teams? But anyway, does that make, I don't know, rapid response justice teams a vigilante community police force? Is this Black Lives Matter's grand solution to a world after the abolishment of police to have unregulated justice teams roving the neighborhood, doling out justice as determined by themselves?
Revolution isn't just the ending of something, it's the beginning of something new.
The end of police and the beginning of something new. Unregulated, fast response justice teams maintained by individual communities for individual communities, with no governmental oversight, of course, because that would just make them police again. And just so you know, a revolution is really a circle, which is really just a return to something that has already been established. And what it seems like Black Lives Matter is advocating for here is a return to frontier justice. Yes, Black Lives Matter, please do tell me how well that worked out the last time. As always, thank you for watching.